The Public Safety Building Committee meeting for June 5th, 2017, and 9 a.m. Meeting time. It's 9:15. I'll call the meeting to order here at Town Hall. The first order of, just to let you know, it's being televised, not live, but being recorded digitally and later to be shown on Raleigh TV, so just be aware of that. With that, I'll call the meeting to order, and the first item on the agenda is the police fire department communication systems. But before we get to that, I'd like to jump down to number 3, which is the architectural plans and HVAC systems. We've been waiting for some information, and I know there was a field trip.
Yes.
And we'll discuss the communications after the police chief isn't here, so we'll put that off till later in the meeting. But if we can get some information.
We did go up and toured the facility in Manchester. It was a senior residence for priests of the Manchester Diocese, and I guess it was their administrative side of the wing of the building. And they showed us the cassettes that were on the wall, as well as the ones that are in the ceiling, and the main power unit outside. They were all very small. And they had it run. They turned one on for us. They had a remote control for the ones that we were looking at, and I was impressed by how quiet they were. And even when there's a demand, you really set a demand for either the heat or the air conditioning. Is that the noise doesn't.
That's good.
It's so. It would be a non-obtrusive system. Because the main units, power units outside are very small. You don't even. They were not what you're normally thinking about when you think of the outside power units.
How big a building was this, Chief? Was it? I mean,
it was a couple of floors, and they had units in each one. It was 2 stories. I really, it's probably not on office size wise. It's if you took the area like in the fire station where the administrative suite, it was probably no bigger than that. Size-wise, it might be a little bit bigger, but about the same size. And it was two or three units outside that ran the whole thing. And it was an older building. It wasn't built to a new construction. But I was impressed with the size. They were unobstructive in view, although the HVAC guy said they would be up on the roof anyway. We wouldn't see them. And like I said, the wall-mounted unit was about the size of that one, and then the cassettes in the ceiling were very nice. Just like a regular suspended ceiling, and very quiet. I was impressed, and it didn't take long for you to start feeling whether it was cooling or it was heating. It was a
How long did they have it in? Did they say?
Huh?
How long did they have? Had they had it?
They had it for 2 years. And they haven't had any issues with it. And they had the contractor there. They said they haven't been out there to do any repairs to it or anything. So it seems to be a very robust system. And I was impressed with how quiet it ran. So I don't want to speak for Scott, but I was happy with what I saw.
Right.
And talking to him, it seems to be for us right now the best way to go.
Okay, now now Neil, you didn't know about the meeting, right? How did that happen? I thought Neil was going to be part of the.
Our engineer has been chasing these guys, and we just got a window. That's my fault. I didn't contact Neil. I basically just forgot.
Okay.
But he was trying to pin down a date with these people, and it had been pretty difficult.
Right.
Yeah, and even with the date that we had, the person that was supposed to let us in wasn't there. And the people that were there do nothing about it. So it was almost like we take the whole half a day off to come up for nothing. They were able to get the maintenance guy from the Archdiocese over who had keys to get to where we had to go. So
It was
a little.
It was a complicated thing,
Well, I guess I'm not sure what to say, Neil or Greg, if you guys want to talk one of you at a time, whatever, and kind of, I think part of this is what the cost is going to be versus a conventional system. And I guess that's probably, at this point, that might be the biggest issue we have is cost-wise, what.
Anecdotally, it's probably the most economical way we can go right now, and that's from our engineers. But I think that I can conference Neil in this, Mark Tachi, our engineer, he and I can talk about that. But I think this seems to be the way it's been framed to me is that it is the most cost-effective way to deal with it right now.
Because we're combining, we're agreeing that the old system in the police station really has to go.
Yeah.
There's no way we can really effectively integrate that into the new building addition.
We tried. I had the engineers look at it in some detail, and it's really at the end of its usable life. The equipment is old, the ductwork is antiquated. It's not working terribly well right now, anyhow, or perhaps ever. So it's just, and if you look at the system itself, there's really not that much there. It's it's a loop of ductwork and a heating and cooling unit. There's a separate little fan and unit for the cells, which looks like it was added sometime afterwards. But that's clearly not working. That's the police department gets dinged on that regularly by
Yeah, the cells have been a problem
yeah. So
for years.
Yeah, you don't realize how significant when you mentioned, Chief, that it was quiet, that we stayed at a place over the weekend for on our trip, and when they turned on their air conditioning unit, you could not talk to anybody at the table. It was just overwhelmingly
Yes.
loud.
Neil?
So our only concern is the cost. Our research with other engineers and other projects, the VRF systems have presented as a premium when compared to an air system. I will say right off the bat that the premium that I expected to see in the pricing is not reflected in the estimates. So I'd be very happy to be proven wrong. That would be great.
Do we have did we get cost estimates?
yes, we do.
We do.
To that issue, it's not a full-blown VRF system, which is what we've done in other places. They can get more costly because it's system-wide. These are individual systems for different components of the building, much the way you would do a conventional air system, where you have zones, and each zone is taken care of by a condenser and the associated units. Where VRF gets complicated is when you try to interconnect the entire building with all these multiple zones. The controls, the piping, the management of the system gets complicated and expensive. This is using the technology, if you will, in a more conventional way, so that you have heating and cooling in various zones, but it has a far less complicated control system than the others do. So you're basically building a system that's going to operate as a conventional system, but just using
And the police department, what are we talking the numbers of zones? Or how are you configuring the heating, ventilation, separation between one zone and another?
I would have to open the drawings and.
But I mean, we're talking, obviously dispatches,
Dispatch has a zone.
One.
The cells have a zone, and then we get into the new building, new addition. It's zoned basically designed for the type of usage that the space has and the exposure. For example, one side of the building, the north side of the building is going to be treated differently than the south side, and that sort of thing, because you have different heat gains and
so these are gonna be separate individual units, is that what,
you'll have.
more or less?
Well, you'll have different units that go back to 2 or 3 condensers, as you would have any air conditioning unit sitting on a pad. And you might have 2 or 3 of those.
So if the chief's office calls for air conditioning,
Mhm.
whatever unit that's hooked up to would kick on, but only direct air to that, there would be, how does it work by the flues get open and closing of?
It's actually how much refrigerant is pumped. So if you need 60, if you need heating here, or if you need cooling, if you need cooling at 65 degrees in one space and you need more cooling somewhere else, there's a separate refrigerant line. There can be 3 or 4 refrigerant lines hooked into one condenser, but there are valves that adjust how much coolant is going to each one of those respective units to match the thermostats in those spaces. So the amount of the equipment is smaller, but you're controlling each zone by adjusting what's they call a variable refrigerant flow, because you're changing the amount of refrigerant to accomplish the temperature. Where this system deviates from what Neil is talking about, when you have a building-wide system, you're not just controlling that refrigerant flow from each one of those units to each space. All that refrigerant is then interconnected with all the other spaces. So if that space needs heating and this space needs cooling, you actually start pumping refrigerant from one space to the next. So there's an efficiency built into that, because obviously if you're pulling heat out of one space to make it cool, you can take that heat through the refrigerant and dump it into another space. This system is much more conventional, so that you do. Space needs heating or cooling, it's going to come right off the condenser. But when you start interconnecting like that, it gets very, very complicated and much more expensive.
Now, what do we, with a fire station, I mean, you got dramatically different heating and cooling needs. In other words, you got the Bay Area, which is, you can normally keep that at 60 or,
Yeah, about 60 in the wintertime, and
cool it somewhat in the
yeah, well, it's 70, it's 68, 70.
70 and,
You don't want it, this door's going up and down, you don't want to have it too
right.
extreme either way, depending on the season.
That's going to be a more conventional system. The apparatus room, it's our intent to do an under-slab radiant system in there. So that's not this. That's a separate standalone system. You're basically pumping warm water through coils in the slab to heat the space. And you have a conventional furnace, conventional boiler to heat that water. In addition, we'll probably have several, ceiling hung fan units that all have the heat as well. The radiant slab keeps the temperature at a comfortable level, and it's very even and so forth. But if you do open the doors, all that air inside is going to cool down.
Yeah, it's going to change
So
dramatically.
it's moving like things will bring the temperature back up,
They'll just run
and then
the heat.
shut off, and they won't be.
So the fan units will be like to rapidly, if you open the doors and close them in the wintertime, those units will kick on to
Bring the heat back up.
bring the temperature up.
Yep.
All right, Neil, what would be your recommendations, or how do you assess this? And, I mean, this is a decision we're gonna have to make pretty quick here.
Yeah, the two concerns that I had that I had hoped that we could vet with the system in space or in use was, one, I'd hoped it would be a local 149 job, but that wasn't the case. I had hoped that we could talk a little bit about maintenance costs and what they had incurred for maintenance costs over the last couple of years of operation, and then first cost. So those are my three biggest concerns. As I understand it, the the filters, in a conventional unit, the filters are located upstream of the fans. So there's one filter that gets changed up at the unit each time, you know, you do a change. And as I understand, again, on these systems, it's at each cassette. So you've gotta go into every office or everywhere there is a head or a cassette and change or wash the filter and then put it back in. I think that's the case. So from an operations standpoint, it can be a headache to have to go into everybody's office or the dispatch room or whatever else and clean those filters out and address that situation on a fairly regular basis. I know I have one of those or several of those systems in my own house, and that's a 4 or 5 time a year cleaning, at least every other month, if not every month. So those are basically my concerns.
What, in terms of changing the filters, is that, are we talking just an ordinary filter? I mean, like you buy at Home Depot, or is it something that's specialized?
I didn't honestly look into it that far. I know that they're right in the cassette in each of the ceilings.
They're rarely available, it's not an exotic item.
And the cassettes, you're talking about a cassette, you're talking something, like my house, I got, 8x8 unit in each room, a vent that blows from the central system, but I mean, is that the size of a cassette, or are we talking about
They're
something
probably
bigger?
2x2, probably lays right in the grid
Yeah,
for the ceiling.
Yeah, it lays in the ceiling grid, the ones I saw, so.
Yeah, it may protrude down a little bit, it's just because part of the ceiling.
So there's no particular expertise in changing these filters, it's just a matter of buying the filters and
It's not
periodically change them. The outside air is coming from the outside, or are we recirculating inside air?
There is an economizer, but that's only in, we don't have a lot of ventilation. There's not a lot of outside air being brought in. It's only where it's needed by code. Most of these rooms, a lot of these rooms, you have operable windows, so it's not,
Right.
if you need fresh air. But things like locker rooms, you definitely need that. The cell block, definitely need that. There are certain rooms that specifically need tempered outside air coming in. So there is an economizer for those spaces. In other words, cold air comes in, it gets heated with the exhaust air coming out, so that it's not frigid when it hits the
So I
space.
should take down your
You're saving
information and then
that
have her call you.
energy.
Do you need a service company then to do this, or is this something like the janitor would do, or, I mean, is it gonna be,
I should double check on that.
Okay.
It's
me too.
probably something a janitor could do.
And then-
I think that having been said, you probably want a service contract regardless of whatever system you have, to have someone come and check it, whatever it is, once a year or so, to make sure everything is operating properly. Changing filters, maybe not. That may be something that you just handle in-house, but there are other things, checking the system for refrigerant, making sure that the pumps and motors are all working properly, that sort of thing.
how often do you have to put the refrigerant in then?
You
Does it
shouldn't
run
have-
out?
you
It
shouldn't
just
have
stays
to
in
at
there
all.
forever?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well.
It's basically a closed
Forever might
system.
be a
Yes,
little
I'm
optimistic.
just thinking like.
Once every
last
couple
year I had
years?
mine topped off, so it
There's no
happens, but
evaporator.
it doesn't.
It doesn't, it
Runs
is-
low, doesn't run
It is
low.
a closed loop,
Yeah.
so ideally,
If it runs low, there's a leak somewhere.
yeah.
Which is, again, why
You
if
have the
there's a
service
leak,
company,
then
yeah.
they would find that and.
What kind of companies do this kind of service, we have the town hall under, we have our heating system checked every year, like, how does that work? This is a special
No, it would probably be
VRF company?
it would probably be the same guy. Well, I say
Insurance.
that. It's not, this isn't an exotic system, so someone that's competent to handle conventional air conditioning and heating should be able to handle it. And if it's not the person you have, it's not it's not a highly technical, specialized bunch. And Mitsubishi systems, they're everywhere right now, so it's, and if well, as I said, we've also had one room that's air conditioned. That's where we go in the summer. And we have effectively the same system, it's just obviously tiny, but it's, that was just someone, you know, local heating and cooling guy.
Are we filtering the air when it comes into the system, or just when it gets pumped into each individual space?
It's the inside,
So if you're drawing outside air,
the outside air.
it's
would
not
be-
being filtered when it comes in?
No. That, we assume that's clean air. Should be clean air.
Is there anything at the intake that, just for like dust, pollutants?
Well,
I'm just-
that
all of a
was what I'm
sudden,
thinking, is this year,
It's a gravel parking lot for the ball fields
this
out
time of
back.
year, you
It's
look at the-
surrounded by trees.
everything turns green out there this time of year with
Let me look at
If
that.
you suck all that in,
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, there must be.
I would assume there's probably a primary
Yeah.
on the intake.
We want to pump all that pollen into the fire station.
Good point.
No, my eyes are better enough for
Well,
that.
I mean, it's just a matter of you're catching it with one, in other words, if you were filtering the intake air, you could change that filter, I mean, I'm gonna say twice a year, I have no idea, and then if that air is being filtered, you're gonna have to do a lot less filtering of each individual room, I guess that would be my concern, is,
I know we have it throughout the system, but I have to, let me look at
because
this.
when I do and I relate it to my house, I got a 2x2 ceiling, it installed after the house was built. I got a 2x2 intake vent on the ceiling in the hallway,
Yeah.
which draws in the air that feeds the system. And I basically, I keep the windows closed all summer, once I turn the system on, and I just change that once a year, I have no problem, you know, and we live in the woods, so it's the pollen and stuff is just, this time of year is horrendous in this area, so I think that should be something that we take a look at.
Greg, one thing I just wanted to question, outside units,
Mhm.
those are the condensing units that go outside the building, correct?
Correct.
Right. The estimate shows that there are 12 condensers at the PD, and I think 10
Mhm.
at the fire station.
Mhm.
So these are, I'm assuming these are small units, rather than what the chief may have seen?
Yep.
Okay.
And these are also, this system is in development, so
Okay.
originally, you know, we're doing a per zone type of thing. The number of those units may.
No, like I said, I just wanna make sure that expectations are clear.
Yeah, they're just small.
So, and how does, you have copies of the cost estimates?
We just got them late Friday, yes.
You've had a chance to take a look at it?
I kinda cruised through it.
Briefly?
Yeah.
So, how are we looking in terms of cost estimates versus what we have available for funding? Did we get it? Is that a copy of them there?
The number, where it says total construction cost,
Yep.
$9,273,000. That's for both buildings and the site.
So we originally estimated $9,033,000. So we're up to $9,273,000, which actually is not too bad. Everything considered. So that includes the new type of heating system. Now, if we were to put the old heating system in there, would that vary anything, or is it pretty close to being what would be the same price?
I'd have to double check that. I'm assuming it might be a little bit more, but that would be just a wild ass guess right now. I can't really say. There are some refinements that are going on with this. A few things that Neil and I talked about. One of the things that we have here is this is we are replacing the cell fronts, the cell doors in the detention area. in the
Totally
cell.
replacing the cell doors? Is
Yes.
that include, that's included in this
Yes.
estimate?
It is. It
Is that because of the requirements, or
I-
just,
Basically, yes and no. I mean, I think it is a problem. It's an ongoing thing. It's an expensive item. It's something that the chief wanted. That felt that it was an important thing to do, and I don't disagree. But that's something I wanted to talk to Chief Demas about a little bit. You know, we're really not doing much in detention. I mean, it's new toilet fixtures in there, you know,
Yep.
the suicide-resistant fixtures and new cell doors. If memory serves, it's over $100,000 in stuff for that.
really, that much? Now, is that mostly the cell doors, or is that,
That's this.
what page would we be looking at for the cell block would be?
Cell doors are on page 17.
There's only two of us, so I'm gonna have to go.
Okay,
You gonna do fire stuff?
Maybe doctor stuff, depends.
Valley Police and Fire on the air, dispatching medical aid to number 278 Central Street. With two parties involved, an elderly couple. Wife fell last night, has a small cut on her arm, is feeling very dizzy. Husband, age 77, fell this morning. He hit the back of his head. He has a small spot that is still bleeding, and a home health aide is expected.
I should be back, should I?
okay.
Chief.
Medical aid for an elderly couple is also involved.
So what are we looking at?
I take it back. I was
on page
I
17.
misspoke. 'Cause I was looking at something this
Under
morning.
Division 11,
Right at the bottom,
Yep,
the last section, detention equipment replacements.
sliding typical cell door assembly. You have 3 at $10,000 apiece.
And then the swing door.
And the
same.
swing door, like I said, 100. It's not 100. It's about 40.
I think,
what's there now? I don't know, I haven't been in the police station in years.
Which is probably a good thing that you have.
Yeah, yeah, was it, I mean, it used to be the old doors with the bars, I think that's all gone.
Yeah,
because
they're,
of
no,
the-
they're all, they're
They
bars.
solid doors, are they bars?
They're bars. And they have a
It's
plastic
a plastic.
attached,
Oh, okay, so
and that, but they swing.
it's
They do-
worthwhile.
They do
Yeah.
not slide.
Oh, they swing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he tried to lock me.
You can do either way. The swings are fine as well, but they have to be, you know, obviously you can't put a ligature around it.
Right, right. Okay,
There's another, well, getting into some details, one of the things I've talked to the chief about is whether he wants a slam lock feature or he wants to physically lock the doors.
Yeah,
Which is great if you're wrestling with a prisoner, you throw him in the cell and you
yeah,
slam
yeah,
the
so-
door. On the other hand, if he gets the better of you and throws you in the cell, he can slam the door and you're locked in. So sometimes it's good to have a key.
yep.
You actually do.
there's probably not a huge difference in cost.
Oh, there's no
No
it's-
difference.
It's the same. It's just how you want to do it.
All right, and the heating we have to take care of in there anyway. And the plumbing, those are all things we absolutely have to do.
Yeah.
All right. Neil, and you're going through this, we haven't had a chance to really go through it
Right.
ourselves, but you
No.
picked out a couple of areas of,
yeah, just some little things. Like I noticed on the site work number that there was no ledge removal included in the site work numbers.
well, I thought we were saying there probably wouldn't be.
We don't,
Well, I mean,
we don't know.
I should rephrase that. That
Yeah.
It appeared initially that there's ledge under there, but they may be able to do the construction without removing the ledge.
We'll know better probably in about a week or so. In fact, the call that I received just before we started the meeting, that was our geotechnical engineer. He's arranging borings up here
Okay.
to spot exactly. He's already done test holes.
Yeah,
So we have a quick snapshot of what what the site is, but I want to do some deep holes.
The concern, at least from my perspective, the concern is more on the fire station side of the site. The rock is certainly shallower on that side. I think the estimate suggests that we may be pinning into some rock in some areas. At least that's what we had talked about in the past.
Yep.
And That said, if you're pinning a foundation, it means you probably don't have the 4 feet of coverage to frost, so you'll probably wind up doing some trench excavation inside the building for under slab piping, like your apparatus bay floor drains, the sewer lines leaving the building, things like that, you may come into the top strata of the rock with that work, so I was surprised to not see anything, but again, we don't know for sure.
So we won't know until they do that'll come show in the
They'll do
borings.
the probes.
Now, you're doing, what do you say, Thursday or Wednesday, we're doing
Perk test.
perk tests?
Yep.
Is the borings done at the same time, or are they two separate operations?
Probably 2 separate operations.
Is is our company doing that, or your company's doing the borings?
Well, we're,
The borings, the perk test was
It's
done
on
by our
us.
contractor.
Right. But the borings are being done by,
we're making arrangements.
you're making arrangements for that? Okay.
We've got a geotech that's gonna handle that.
All right, so overall, what are you telling us? No, I mean, obviously, I mean, each one of us can go through this and pick out nickels and dimes and things like that, that's probably, that's why I'm saying if Neil comes up with something, obviously this might be a glitch, the ledge.
Like I said, the ledge, a lot of site work related things are usually unknowns. You carry a contingency going into it to cover those things. I would like to see at least the assumption that we're gonna hit it until we know we're not included in the estimate. And that way we sort of have a worst case scenario in front of us.
Fair enough.
That's our concern, that's all.
I'll talk to Pete Timothy about that. We should carry it along for site eventualities. I think that the short version is I think we're pretty close to target, you know, it's moving around a little bit, but we're still kind of value engineering, we haven't really gotten into that yet, so I think, cost-wise, I think we're in pretty good shape. Design-wise, we're in real good shape, everybody's pushing ahead, I think the engineers have, as far as the HVAC, are pushing forward with that. Structural is in good shape. We've managed to, like I mentioned last week, we managed to find a very efficient way of handling your attic space, so that you have some clear space up there very economically with using scissor trusses. We have what else? So structural is well ahead, architectural is well ahead, MEP is moving forward. Civil is kind of the slow boat in the convoy right now because he really needs that perk test information to wrap things up, so he may be pushing his schedule out.
Now, you included a rough estimate of what the septic will cost, and that's
There is.
included here in terms
There
of,
is.
There's a whole
depending on what we find, obviously it could
Right.
change, but,
There's a whole site work section.
okay.
The way he broke it down was police building, fire building, and then
Yeah.
site work combined as a separate item, so you can go through the line items on that.
So probably the biggest thing that the septic doesn't really contemplate, and that's in fairness to them, would be if they had to either fill it, you know, to raise the
Right,
grade.
right.
And whatnot, that's not really in there, it's more or less, you know, septic, sand, stone, pipe, leaching field.
Well,
All the basic things are there. It's just a question of whether you had to do anything extravagant to account for groundwater or change in soil conditions that we don't know about or anything else on that end of the site.
Well, the septic's going mostly behind the police station, right?
To the
To the side,
side.
To the side, yeah,
Right.
but I mean, in other words, you're looking at the site, it's to the left side
to
of
the
the
left side of
police,
the police
or
station,
the
yes.
addition to the police
Yep,
station.
sort of in that Pine Grove.
And then right, okay, in the Pine Grove, and then
Yep.
the alternate is in the back, if I remember right,
Right.
more or less behind the police department parking lot, or we might include the parking lot too.
Right. Just one, I just actually dawned on me when I glanced at the title page. The alternate is the carport. So the 9273 does not include the carport or the,
The canopy.
not,
Yeah,
That's just a canopy, right?
it's just the canopy.
okay.
Not-
I'm
not
sorry.
the,
I'm sorry.
not the
I thought
garage.
it was the transfer.
Yeah, I looked,
I'm
I
sorry.
noticed that right
Okay,
away.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, and
okay.
actually, I think he's a little heavy on that. That's a roof with a couple columns. That's,
Yeah, it seems like a lot of money. The prevailing wage rate, you know. You never know what it's gonna be. All right. Debbie, you got anything that,
Just on the
You wanna bring
site work, I have,
This was Meridian's letter.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out when I'm gonna get the additional work on the survey. They were working on that this past week, so.
okay.
so basically, other than, the water runoff, the stormwater, we don't have a problem with conservation then, right? That's what I interpret this as a quick reading, which is a good,
That's what it says.
that's good, to the good.
Yeah, there wasn't a follow-up email.
Yes, and I spoke to the conservation agent, and so, you know, he said that, he was, he said that there, from where he's sitting, there is really no wetlands or anything to be,
Okay.
that's gonna play into it. And that's why he gave the go-ahead for the perk test,
Okay.
because the Board of Health wouldn't have authorized or scheduled it without his okay.
Okay, good.
Now, are we, in the survey that's going on, are we delineating, the property line between where where the driveway's going in, about Smith Lane? What, in other words, we have two lots there. We have the lot that we're building on, and then there's the other lot. Are we delineating, or is there a stake that shows, in other words, I guess I would say on this, in other words, this, I think it's right. Yeah, that's 133, so. In other words, this line here is in the trees. And I'm wondering, is that gonna be a survey point?
Delineated?
Yeah, and here's my thing is this, that we may, in other words, I don't know where the driveway's going. You know, we're expanding the driveway. And there may be an issue of if we could add a couple of parking spaces in that tree section that, you know what I mean, it would still be on this lot for the ball fields. Because I got together, I talked to Tim Southall. Obviously, we got the drawings for what the, you know, possible parking lot size if we're losing a lot of parking spots. One of the things I want to do is go out there some night, and then I'm running out of time, and count how many cars are out there when the fields are full. But that may be something that wouldn't be on the project cost if Meridian can, you know, put a stake in the, I assume he's going to anyway, if put a stake in that one left, right-hand corner as you're looking at the buildings by Smith Lane. So we know exactly where that, because I don't want to get into that other lot. That's a whole different issue, if we have to get into that other lot a little bit. I know the driveway is not going to be in the lot, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of the survey.
I was gonna say, I'll be honest with you, I don't know, I don't have a clear picture in my mind of what the surveyor was contracted to do. For some reason, I thought his work was more in this.
It probably is, yeah. no.
Topography, it was a topographical survey.
I mean,
It was
we
very
probably have a
specialized.
survey in our record somewhere of the lot, because they had to be surveyed when we bought them, or where they are, or who has them. It's just something I'm still in the back of my mind, I'm concerned about the parking out there, and I don't wanna keep bringing that up, but on the other hand, I don't wanna lose any more than we have
So
to.
you want,
So
you'd
what-
like to get a couple, I'm assuming you want
Well,
this front corner set, and then maybe a couple.
Yeah, I'm looking,
points
for.
on
In
mine?
other words, what I'm looking at is, the driveway comes in here. Is this basically the line, or the property line, or is it, over this way somewhere? I guess that's what my question
I
is.
think that would be additional work, Dave. The field work, and
Necessarily
Bill Murray
put markers
helped me
in,
write the scope.
you know?
There's features, pavement, landscaping, lines, exposed ledge. See, record conditions mapping, that's kind of what
Right.
it was. And then, Meridian may provide at the request of the client additional services such as, but not limited to, boundary
retracement
retracement. So
survey, that might
that
be-
wasn't part of it because the town owned the whole area.
Right,
It was more so that Greg's engineering team could work on the site
Right,
to
right.
locate
Okay.
the septic and the parking and develop all that roadway and entryway in.
just something I'd like
If you
to.
want that, then I can ask for
Well,
that additional
why don't you
work.
take a look, you got the survey drawings, Neil,
But
or you,
it's right here.
all right.
Yeah, we have these, that's what they were working on. And then we just did the additional work.
Because that's the current island there, right, going in.
There gives you the extent of the trees,
Right.
right there.
Okay, well, I don't want to get hung up on it at this point, but, I gotta get out there and look at parking spaces again. But if you see something along that line,
Sure.
take note of it. If he's doing the topographic, the overall site picture of the footprint, he must have some idea of where that line is, because he said it when we talked to him Bill Green. When we talked to him last week, he said everything was within
We can go out.
that lot.
I can stop on my way out, and walk through the woods and see if there's any, he might have used that as a corner to tie in.
Well, that's what I'm wondering,
the
it
rest
seems
of the
logical
survey,
that you'd
so-
use, that would just be there without making a major
Go see
issue
if
out
there's a
of it.
marker or a bound
Okay.
in the area.
Yeah, if you
we
could
can
do that, that'd be great.
Reference.
All right. So then. So if we get Wednesday, we get the septic stuff done. And once we get, and if he's gonna do the borings relatively quickly, I assume within the next week or so, that will give us a solid ground on the rock, and what else are we looking for? Anything else besides the boulders?
That's the main thing. That's the main thing. I think the assumption is that we'll also know what the soils are out there. So
Right.
I don't expect we're gonna hit peat or something like that.
No, I don't think so. It looks pretty, that used to be a gravel pit, so, in the back, which I assume would probably extend up towards the front
As long as
also.
As long as it hasn't been backfilled, which I'm sure it hasn't.
No, way back when we built I was on the board when we did the big ball field, all the ball fields. And they were all basically, that's why there's a lower level and upper level. The lower level was, the big field at the bottom was the bottom of the pit. And the top level was, they hadn't gotten, I think they shut them down or something before they ever got over there, or maybe there wasn't good gravel over there, but there's nothing filled there that I'm aware of, and anyway. All right,
Couple little things
yeah,
about, actually, David and I have been talking about. I must say that your attorney did an outstanding job going through the front end.
He's a good attorney.
He is a good attorney. He caught. Little stuff. Is the water department going to waive the fees? That was a question that he had asked.
Yes.
Yeah, normally any town job, the building department, they all
Yeah.
waive the fees for town projects. I mean, we're paying ourselves, so, I mean, the water department is a little different. Maybe we should confirm.
Are there any differentiating, Dave, between permit fees and inspection fees?
No, as far as, I'll check, but as far as I
Okay.
know, the building inspector and the building department, that's all,
Do you know if the building inspector uses a full-time wiring and plumbing inspector?
no, they're all
No,
part-time.
no.
So I would make sure you ask the question, because usually under a part-time arrangement, those guys are paid by the inspection.
No, they're paid on a salary basis.
They have a
Okay.
salary.
All right,
Yeah.
no,
So
great,
there should be no,
perfect.
I mean, it may be a matter of coordinating when they're gonna get out there, you know what I
Right.
mean? That might be.
Oh, yeah,
Because they work it from like 6 in the morning until 8 or 9, and then they're done, because that's when all the
Okay.
contractors come in early on their inspections. But we can check on that. But as far as I know, work that was done at the housing authority, for instance, my wife was over there, there was nothing was charged for anything. The inspections were all done, but there was no charges, so.
The water treatment plant, when we constructed that, that's a big, project. And the building inspector didn't charge any, building permit fees for that.
All right, so-
I would suggest that this committee take a vote to request the Board of Water Commissioners waive any
Right.
water fees
In fact, I'll
related
take-
to this
If you wanna
project.
make a motion on that right now,
I'll make the motion that we send
I'll
a
second.
request in.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the two chiefs are not here, obviously, but no, we definitely, there's no need of it, there shouldn't be
Yeah.
any problem there.
There are a couple other housekeeping things in there, obviously insurance stuff, whatever you.
Yep, we have to work on that. So I was going to speak to the town's insurance company about the builder's risk and how that would be folded into the bid documents.
is it by the town or is it by the contractor?
That's the question.
Yeah, and I really wanted to get a sense of what your opinions were on that.
If it becomes a rider to your rural town policy, as often as not, it can be economical because it's just a small incremental addition to that, because you already have, you already have an arrangement. So we've seen it that it can be a benefit for the town to carry it. On the other hand, if not, it's a simple matter for a contractor to do so, because he's in the same situation. If he's doing a number of projects, he'll have that's just added on to his overall policy as well, so.
I know that the dollar amount that we're talking about for the construction is higher than our insurance carriers, Maya. They have a lot of cities and towns in Massachusetts. So they go out to the open market and they'll have to buy it. So in some cases, we request, for this size, we would request a contractor to do that, though they'll still look at the language. I need to run that by them to make sure that the language that's going in the bid documents for that policy is something that they feel comfortable with in case something happened.
So you want it by the contractor?
Well, I'm thinking I'd like a consensus of the committee.
I wouldn't have any idea it's between UW, you deal with insurance, and you guys have got the
Okay.
experience.
I mean,
I think whatever,
I
whatever you
don't have
decide,
any
or whatever
experience
works the best for, because it's something I'm just going at that board as far as having any
I would-
knowledge about it.
I would suggest that, I think you would have to go out and buy a policy.
Well, our insurance
Specific to
company
the
would go
job.
out in the market to buy the
Right.
policy for us, because they usually are capped at about $4 million or
Right.
so. This is pretty big.
So the only assurance would be, is if you provided it yourself, you'd know it would be in place. We can ask the contractor to provide a certificate of insurance to verify that they've at least carried the policy. But I don't know that there's an economic benefit one way or the other, truthfully. Sounds like everybody's gonna buy it.
Yeah,
It'll be project specific.
and it's
So-
just, and I need to figure out too, because in the police station, they'll actually be in the building working, they're in operation during the construction, which makes this a little different. and a little complicated, because usually under builder's risk, as soon as they take over, the contractor takes over, then it's under, their insurance. You know what I mean? That's just a precarious situation.
Yeah.
So I just need a little work on that.
Yeah, that's
We're
one
doing a
for you.
similar thing at the Pine Grove School, so, to get that straight. There's been a lot of discussion on that. So we'll just hold off on that for
Okay,
now
that's fine.
until but I'm thinking that it'll be the contractor, but,
Okay, just, insurance tends to get complicated sometimes.
yeah, the scenario would be is that the builder's risk insurance covers the place even when it's still in operation. And, usually that's how it happens, because it's a construction site,
Yeah,
even
because-
though it's occupied.
I mean, if there's a failure, it could very easily take the existing building with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're pretty well. Anything else, Debbie, that you have?
No, that
Administratively?
was everything I had, and the minutes aren't ready yet, so.
Okay, well, I mean, I got a couple other areas I want to go back to, but I mean, the police fire communication systems. I think, I know neither chief is here at the moment, but I think the issue was more with the police chief than the fire chief. And I've kind of come to the conclusion in looking everything over, that, we didn't include any major work in the dispatch center in the original project.
Correct.
Other than, I think you said you could move, there's a wall you'd like to have moved, which is something to make way for. And and if we did conduits, in looking at the overall future needs of the of the dispatch area, you're saying that, does that include, in this estimate here, is there sufficient piping and conduit runs that, in other words, they need to run new lines or whatever, that the conduit will be there so that we can make that upgrade at the time?
Yes, yeah.
I think that's essential. I mean, basically, we don't have any cost estimates on what the chief was checking on, but,
I was gonna say, I think we're still waiting for that from.
right, and I'd like to see that, and I think it's important that we have that, but I think at this point, I think we need to, with these cost estimates and some other changes that we're probably gonna need to be looking at, that any major renovations to the dispatch center, I mean, we didn't intend to do that at the beginning, and we were under the impression at the time that they were pretty well set there, and obviously the new chief comes in and there's things he'd like to do, but at this point, it's more important that we get the building envelope and those essential systems, and at some point, a year or two down the road, if we need to upgrade the communication center, we'll look at doing that under a separate contract, whatever the.
Right.
But it would be good if he's got cost estimates coming, at least to give us an idea. And if we can, if we get to the end of the project and everything's all in, and there's something we can do a possible add-on for something or whatever, I don't mind doing that, but I think at this point, we rule out. Does anybody have any objections? Or
No,
does it seem
I
like-
think you're absolutely
I mean,
right.
it just wasn't included, and, the costs are gonna be real close here.
We are designing to accommodate a future phase that would include that,
Right,
and so the building won't get in the way of that
right.
when it happens. And there is a fair amount of technology in the project. Neil and I were just chatting about it before the meeting. We have, it's not in this estimate, but it's in your overall project estimate. We have, security cameras, access control systems, all the technology wiring. There's a bunch of stuff in there
They're all
that's
down here.
Okay.
probably between $400,000 and $500,000.
Technology cabling?
You got telephone,
Stuff.
you got
Okay.
antennas,
So-
you got radio communications,
Mm-hmm.
computers for the fire station,
Yep.
security and access control, technology cabling. So there's 4 or 5 line items that have about
Mm-hmm.
500,000 round numbers, sort of below the line.
So we're gonna verify these costs then, the technology sections?
Well, what we should,
I know we're looking at this now through that, but this piece
Right,
here,
this piece here covers
Still-
this,
we
this
still need
this
to
top
get-
section, right?
yeah, we still need to kind of look at that as part of the overall budget.
And you'll see some technology in here, but that's basically providing conduit and boxes and so forth to support these systems.
Right.
Okay, the conduit's in there, and the actual equipment's in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess our next step is to, I know some of this has already happened. Our technology consultant has been talking with the chiefs, and he'll start putting packages of this stuff together, and he'll produce estimates, and we can actually start soliciting proposals for this,
Okay.
for this equipment. Generally, we've done this on a state bid list basis rather than
Oh, yeah.
competitively bid it. I don't know, Neil, how you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. It gives you guys the flexibility to choose a specific system. In an ideal world, we'll pick a system that can be installed by multiple state bid list vendors, and then we'll ask, 2 or 3 contractors for a quote. And that way there'll be some element, at least in the labor piece of it, there'll be an
Right.
element of competitive bidding. And then under the state bid list guidelines, you can negotiate, to a final scope and price, and then go from there.
My other concern is after the last meeting we had, I did go to the Lake Department the next day, talked to Dan Fielding, I gave him the name of your person, and I stopped over there Friday, and he still hasn't been able to get in contact, they still have not, he said he's called over and they're playing phone tag,
Yeah, I've gotten the same feedback that John's been trying to reach out.
which is not good. I mean, at this point, we really need, I mean, I explained to Dan at the Lake Department that this thing is moving forward, and we, rather than just have the paperwork sit on his desk and, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'll call and see if the guy, we really need to make a concerted effort to get together and deal with that issue, because I don't want that to hold us up at the last minute to figure out what. I mean, the Light Department's very good. And they'll do basically anything we need for the project, but we also need to hone in on that and know exactly what it is we need to do and what, what kind of power needs. The good part of the whole thing is the main power line comes down Daniels Road, up the street. It's a power station on Daniels Road, then it comes down Havel Street right by our lot, so it's more a matter of what we need to feed off the system, I think. I don't know much about power either, but, it's not like we're on the end of the system and trying to gather up power from, that's left over from something else, so.
I'll
But if you could hone in on that, that would be great. And I told Dan, and if you have a problem, call me, or let Debbie know, and I'll zip over there again, because I don't want to run into vacations here, that, all of
No.
a sudden somebody's gone for 2 weeks, and we're sitting, waiting. The timeline here, which we're gonna get to in a minute, is gonna be critical. All right, so was everybody satisfied with that decision? Do we want to vote on? Do we think we should have a vote on, just to make it clear on that we're not gonna do any further dispatch work other than, or you just wanna sit on that and wait for the chiefs to,
I
I mean,
think deference to the chief.
okay,
it's consensus.
Yeah.
We're just-
okay.
If you change your mind, we're just.
Well, no, we're not gonna, I don't see the minds changing, other than all of a sudden we come in $1 million under
Like,
budget.
right?
That would be great, but,
In fact, if somebody wins the Powerball or.
yeah.
Yeah, Powerball.
If I win the Powerball, I'll donate the money I'll make that commitment. Okay, so the field work, we pretty much covered. Project permits, I think Bill was, I know when we had was Bill here was that the last meeting he was here? I know when he left here, he went over and talked to the health board, the planning board, I think even the ZBA,
I
so
think it was 2 meetings ago.
2 meetings ago,
It was just
okay.
us.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, it was just us.
Okay.
But the near as I can gather, we have to go to the ZBA for the frontage, 50-foot in the front.
The setback,
And if we need to, on the Water Protection District, we're in Zone 2, I think, the way I read the bylaw anyway, that I'm not anticipating a problem with either one of those, but we need to get those scheduled at this point, I would say. Once the septic system and the borings are in, then we can get a final site drawings, in other words, exactly what's gonna be where, and that's probably that's what the ZBA will need, obviously. And probably, well, the Board of Health.
So is it, based on this letter from Meridian, we don't need any filing with the CONSCOM?
Well, we're gonna have to go for stormwater.
Okay, so there's still that.
And the way Brent talked is in the other email was that there's no no readily discernible wetlands anywhere near where we're building. So I assume I would agree with Brent that, not even on the edge really, because if there's any wetlands, it's down in the back corner behind to the right of the large ball field in the woods there somewhere, which is really nowhere near. So we're more concerned about how the stormwater is integrated, and then how any other runoff might be handled so that it doesn't get into the.
Does your CONSCOM agent have a peer reviewer?
Yeah, I think they use, I'm not sure.
Usually the applicant might
If
have
you-
to pay for,
Yeah, I think if it is, the applicant pays. And we don't have someone on, like the planning board, anything that comes in is reviewed by an outside contractor and.
The only reason I brought it up is I've found it beneficial if the site engineer and the peer reviewer talk during the design process. It makes the peer review process go a lot smoother and a lot faster.
Well, maybe if the designer can talk to Brent over at the Concom,
Okay.
and if Brent has a good understanding of what's going on, I think they may not require.
Okay.
Like I said, this isn't an area that's even really
No,
close.
and it's, and I mean,
And
what we're
Brent will wanna
doing is
talk with him
relatively
anyway on the
simple, so
stormwater. I think the
I'm
stormwater is-
hoping the answer was no.
Yeah, yeah, I think, and I can't speak for anybody else, obviously, but I think we're in a position here where it's, so much of Raleigh is wetland, but here I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of dry land. So other than the stormwater.
So
But if
ZBA
he can
CONSCOM.
contact Brent, I don't have the phone number, but you can get it
I'm
from
sure,
Debbie.
well, I'm sure he's already spoken.
Yeah, he
to
probably
us.
has, it's just something to confirm. Once again, we don't wanna get to these permits, because sometimes with hearings and advertising and all that stuff,
Right.
it's time. It's not so much the problem, it's the time involved in having the proper. All right, anything else on permits, or?
Planning board, right, just site plan review?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would guess, maybe. But when I was talking to him, he kinda said under the planning board regulations, most of the towns exempt from a lot of those regulations, town-owned facilities, so. But it'd be worth checking with him anyway, just,
Yeah, Bill has a list.
like I said, we don't wanna get caught in timeframes later on, near the end.
And we don't have, I'm assuming we don't have dates for any of these, right? We haven't asked to be on their agenda, we haven't given them plans.
No, we have, well, again, the real pivotal thing is what's happening at Wednesday.
Right,
So,
right.
those things haven't been advanced, so we're not ready to go.
All right, so as soon as we get plans, those boards need to be contacted so we can set up, because they don't meet that often. Concom meets, I think, twice a month, Board of Health, I don't know how often they meet offhand. The ZBA meets, they meet once a month, now whether they can schedule a special meeting for something to do that. They may be willing to do that, but I can't commit them to do it.
Okay.
So, contract bid documents and proprietary items is,
we already discussed
you
that.
already discussed, are you happy with that?
Oh, we didn't discuss proprietary items, but we've
I
had
was just gonna say, we're not.
town councils looked at, the pieces that go
Okay.
on the bid, the
Yeah.
legal stuff, but
We're
all
limi-
the specs, the technical specs, no, we're not.
we're eliminating the need for the contract to supply a laptop, you know.
All right, so the update on the project timeline,
We were targeting the end of the month. I think that's pushed out a couple of weeks because of this thing with the site. As soon as, right now, as I said, the slow boat and the convoy is built because he has to finish that. So,
okay, so we're basically,
So
mid-
are we-
July.
Suggesting end of July, I think.
Mid-end, depending upon how Bill is able to wrap it up, because he's gonna need a couple of weeks to do his work. He hasn't designed the septic system yet, so.
all right, the chief isn't here for the trailers, so we'll have to see. My one question there, Debbie, is if we've got that, I believe it's the 24,000 in the line item for the rental of the trailers.
Yeah, so we put money in the operating budget in 18, yeah. For the modular building, so you're saying use that for,
Well, is
Some
that
of
something we'll need to repurpose? Or is it that broad enough to,
it says, I believe the line at town meeting, modular building lease.
so if we're not using the money for that lease, if we're gonna do something else with that money?
We could, at a fall
In
town
other words, we
meeting,
wanna
we
use
could-
that money to move the chief's equipment to
Yeah.
a storage trailer. We're gonna have to repurpose
We might be able
that.
to use it on, I mean, it's gonna be a lease of a modular
Yeah,
type
actually,
trailer,
it
so
does-
I think that,
That'll serve the same
if
purpose.
not, we can
Okay,
do something at town meeting and transfer that out to an article.
When is that happening? When do you plan on like taking the trailers down and closing down the lease? Are you planning on doing that before we go out to bid?
Well, that ends in August, so,
well, I think the problem we have is, if we go out to bid and find out that we got some major redesigning to do because the bids come in too high, I would hesitate to ask the chief to take them down next week.
That's kind of where I was coming from. You know, so.
So I think it's a matter of, if we get a bid, I would be looking at anyway, and I'm sure he is too, that he'll have everything in place, but until we get a bid that we can be ready to award,
Work with.
I mean, I don't know how much time the trailer company needs to take down that, or the company that's gonna,
I would think if we give them, if we tell them we're going to bid, we tell them when the bid opening is, and we tell them we need them there the following week, and we give them enough notice to plan it.
right,
I would
that should
think
be,
we should be
it
okay.
should be plenty of
That should
time.
work.
Well, it's gonna take the contractor, after the bids are in, it's
Right.
probably gonna take a couple, 3 weeks anyway before he's out doing anything on the site.
Right,
So there is that window.
there is that timeframe.
You know, he,
As long as the chief's got his plans ready to go and all taken care of. All right, so he's not here, so we'll deal with that. So is there anything, excuse me, anything else that we need to put on the agenda for today? Neil, you're satisfied at this
So
point?
far,
We
so
got
good.
We were waiting for the cost estimates, which we've got.
Right.
You're gonna hone in a little bit on the extra stuff, that's not included in the actual construction.
Yep.
That bottom section to make sure we're in the ballpark
We
there.
will do that. We'll get, now that we have, now that we at least have a good and reliable plug number to put in for construction, we'll sort of prepare our overall budget for the project. It'll very much mirror the November 2015 budget, and it'll reflect the additional 500,000 or so that was appropriated at town meeting on top of that. So it'll reflect the 11.7 million total budget, and anything that's not in the construction or not in the soft cost down below, we'll put into contingency and hold it for now.
So are we satisfied that, are we in agreement that the heating HVAC system is going to be, I mean, that's I think that's my final, we need to confirm. Everything else, I think we got a general direction on. We really haven't talked about, or at least honed in on a decision. The two chiefs that, I'm not really too concerned that, I mean, they want the best heating ventilation system they can get, so I guess my concern is that, is the system that you're proposing what we actually wanna do? And you need that obviously for your drawings.
I think that the only question right now that hasn't been fully answered was the one that you asked about first cost and maintenance cost. You know, what is it gonna cost to do this versus doing something else?
Right.
And as Neil mentioned, what's the ongoing maintenance of it? Neil and I and the engineer can resolve this with a phone call. We can put that.
Okay.
The system itself, I'm satisfied that it is the appropriate way to go, performance-wise. It's a good system. I understand it to be an economical system to install and operate, but I think we need to have those numbers. I think.
And that's the numbers in here, these numbers are based on that system, so we're not looking at an increase in.
No. And I think overall, I mean, there's a track record to these things, you know, and believe me, it's not a call I wanna get, you know, this is, you know.
No, I understand.
The systems have to work, you have to be, you know, cool in the summer and warm in the winter, and it's, you know, because, well, historically, that's
Right.
where the problems are. So, you know, I want this thing to be.
Neil, you feeling comfortable at this point?
Yeah.
Or if you talk to the engineer with Greg, that you guys can, in other words, at the next meeting,
Yeah,
I want to come in and say, okay, this is what, I mean, I'll leave it, at this point, we can leave it open because but we're leaning towards that. And if there's no major hitches, I think,
I mean, the
do
biggest.
you have a problem, Joe? Is it
No,
something like
that's
the way
fine.
we're
The
going?
biggest
Debbie,
thing-
is it
That's
sound-
what I
Biggest
thought
thing
we
for
were
us
gonna
is
do.
just to ask the questions now. rather
Exactly,
than Try to
exactly.
figure out what happened later. That's
All right, so
our biggest
if you
concern.
can pump the engineer on anything that comes to mind, and, you know, if we have any further questions, Debbie, you do, or, I mean, I don't mind going with a new system if everybody recommends it, and, you know, it's,
Again,
sometimes we're better off to move forward than stick with the old stuff, but I don't wanna go out on a limb here, but on the other hand, you know,
again, keep in mind, this isn't new. This is
Right,
not
right.
this is not a
It's new for us,
newfangled,
yeah.
but this is pretty tried and true technology. It's been around for a long time.
the one question I do have is, Neil, when you talk to the engineer, is that, we're not filtering the air, the outside air coming in
We
at
are.
all?
We'll verify
We'll
that.
verify that, because I mean, like I say, up here, if you go down Haverhill Street and look at those little ponds, they're all green right now, or turning green because of the pollen. And we're in a dusty, that's a very dusty area there, so that, you know, it would seem to me that, some filtering would be commonsensical. Now, whether that's the way the system works or not, I don't know. but
I need to be careful because I'm an architect, I'm a
Right, right.
mechanical engineer.
No, I understand,
And I
no.
need to be, you know,
That's why I'm looking at Neil to say, ask those questions for us, so we can, when we come back next meeting, I think we need to make a decision first thing next meeting as to what we're gonna be doing here, so that, because by then, if we meet, we're looking at meeting in 2 weeks, is that,
That's what we talked about.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
so that would be,
The
The
19th.
same time?
Yes, however, we were trying to schedule police negotiations at 9. Can we make it 11? 11:15?
Everybody in a good mood, is that what you're saying?
Any time of that day is fine for me. If 11 is good for you,
Everything okay?
Yeah, we
Okay.
were trying to plan it, it's not set yet, but
all right, why don't we say, is that 11 all right, or 11:30? What do you want, 11, 11:30?
Whatever's good for you.
If you do it at 11, that's a good excuse to either, if you're gonna bargain, you're either gonna be
So,
coming to an
we
agreement.
try to do 2
Don't
hours.
drag it
so,
out anymore, right?
If we said 11:15?
Yeah,
All right,
give us
11:15?
some
I think
time
that
to-
would be better.
Or 11:30, Joe.
11:30 maybe. Yeah, let's go with
All right,
11:30.
11:30.
Just to
30's
be
all right?
sure. 11:30.
Is that all right?
June 19th. It's okay. It's the next meeting, June 19th.
June 19th, 11:30.
Got it.
It's a Monday.
We definitely need the police chief here for that one. Chief, you're pretty well, you're getting a whole brand new building.
Well, he
so-
should be here because he was available
Okay.
for
But we,
this
but we definitely need to
negotiation.
deal with the trailers, and we're talking about the new, we got a few questions, Chief, on the new HVAC system.
Okay.
So Neil's gonna talk to the engineer along with Greg, and we're gonna make a decision on that at the next meeting.
Okay.
The septic digging is taking place Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Well, that's done, and then the drilling, they're gonna be doing a couple of, some borings in the next week or 10 days at the
Okay.
most. Mainly for the fire station site to see what's under there. So hopefully we'll get some information back at that next meeting on those things.
Right, 11:15 was a,
11:30.
Yeah, if the negotiation session doesn't get scheduled, I'll move it back to 9. I have some time. Is that?
That's fine.
Okay.
works
Okay.
for me.
And we need to still discuss the temporary trailer situation. On the communications, we haven't decided exactly, but at this point, the cost estimates, and we'll give you a copy of we'll make copies of the cost estimate. We're basically gonna leave the dispatch center alone.
For now.
And what I'd like to do is when the chief is give us what his company is telling us, some projected costs. And at some point, all the conduits are gonna be in, all that stuff, the building will be built in such a way that we can
Add on to it,
easily
right? Yeah.
add on.
I think
But
it's-
at this point, we didn't
That's
take
what
that
we
into
decided.
consideration in the beginning, and it's
Yeah.
just, the cost estimates are too close to. If we come up with something, then, maybe we can do something, but at this point, I think it's gonna be real tough to do that.
Yep.
All right, does that pretty much cover everything?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody got any questions, Chief? I know you missed,
No, there's,
people make out all right for the call?
well,
They're in the hospital?
they're going to the hospital.
Okay. Yeah, you can't say any more than that. Okay. Joe, you were all set?
I'm all set.
All right. You said the minutes. No, you don't have any minutes yet. Next meeting date is set for the 19th at 11:30. I'll take a motion to adjourn if nobody has anything else.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Sounds good. I like these
Thank you very
meetings.
much.